Hello, welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh, and I have with me today a very special guest, Miles Hurt. Miles, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming. I was really excited to get your book a while back from you, and I cannot wait to ask you a couple of very specific questions about the writing process and things like that today. Uh, Miles, like I talked to you right before we started recording, do you want to go ahead and share with our audience what has your writing journey been like specifically?
Yeah, sure. So probably fairly long and convoluted. So I'm about 45 years old now. So I've been writing, my whole life. So I've probably only working backwards. I've only recently started releasing novels in the last few years. So prior to that, I did a lot of writing of short stories. So when I was in my 20s, I thought, I want to write something like a novel eventually, but I felt like I needed to develop my skills. So my plan was basically to write short fiction so I could have a quicker turnaround on that and see if I could get something published. So that took a while to sort of find what was going to work for me, what I was interested in writing. I tried out a few different things. I wrote a lot of weird fiction, I suppose you'd say, so similar to H.P. Lovecraft, that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
And I wrote a lot of things that wouldn't really fall into a genre. So I had a bit of difficulty getting it published, but eventually I started getting my short stories published. So that was really great to sort of feel that I'd progressed to the point where, my writing was good enough. And from then I started thinking, well, now I want to write a novel. And of course, the first couple of novels that you try to write, and this is, about probably 15 years ago now, the first couple of novels that you write are going to be terrible. So I knew that. So I basically had a few goes at that. And again, the challenge is really what do I want to write and how do I want to write it? So I tried, again, things that were fairly out there. So I suppose you'd say similar to William Burroughs or something fairly experimental, and basically couldn't pull it together. Then I tried writing something a bit more conventional. So the first novel that I actually finished was, I suppose you'd say it was like a fantasy heist novel. So the main character was a thief
Oh,
in a
cool.
fantasy world, and a little bit, the Ocean's 11 in a fantasy setting,
Oh, that's awesome.
sort of thing. Yeah, and it was really fun to write, and I had a lot of fun with the characters. And I occasionally open up the manuscript and go, maybe I should come back to this. But
Yeah.
it's about 200,000 pages, 200,000 words, and a bit of a mess. I spent about 5 years on it, so it took a really long time to finish. And when I finished it, I thought, well, it's not. I don't think it's good enough. I'm not going to try to get it published. I don't want to self-publish it. I know it's not good enough. So, but it was my first finished novel. And then again, I went back to writing some short stories for a while and got a couple published, which was really good. And then my partner and I started having kids. This is very, I told you it was going to be long and convoluted. And then because I didn't have any time, so when I've got kids, you probably know yourself if you've got kids, you've got no time left in your life to
Yeah.
sit there for 3 hours and make stuff up. So I gave writing picture fiction a go. So just writing very short things for kids, and I could just do that for 10 or 15 minutes a night, and it just gave me something to do. So I've got a few of those sort of sitting there, and I haven't really sort of do that, but that kept me going for a bit. And then once I started getting a bit of time back, I again came back to a novel, and I thought, well, I want to write something that I enjoy writing, but that hopefully will find a bit of an audience. So I wrote my first book, which is called 1001 Monsters You Must Slay Before You Die. And it was kind of like a comedy fantasy. So I really enjoyed Terry Pratchett,
Oh, yeah.
Douglas Adams, Red Dwarf, those sort of books.
Yeah.
And I had an idea for that kind of thing. So, and my intention for that was to write something that was easy to write. So I basically just sat at the kitchen table and wrote it in a notebook. So I just handwriting in the evening. And then once it was all done, I typed it up, and it was quite short. It's only about 160 pages long, but it only took me less than a year to finish it. So my first novel took 5 years, and I had all of the world building and, the histories and the the races and the countries and all that, and you know, spent all my energy on that. And the second time around, I went, let's just keep it simple. And if I need something, I'll make it up. And if I need to look something up, I'll look it up and keep it really light. And I actually got the book out and published it. So that was my first experience actually publishing a full-length novel. That was 2017. And it was, I really enjoyed writing it. It was a lot of fun. I don't think it really found an audience. Again, this is sort of like the learning process for me, is learning about the world of self-publication and the world of Amazon and marketing and all that sort of fun stuff. And again, I learned a lot from that, and a lot of things, what to do and what not to do when you're putting the book out. And then on the back of that, I thought, I want to try something else, but again, I want to do something that I can be proud of, but that will hopefully open up that audience again. And so I thought I'll just go with a straight fantasy this time. And that's how I started thinking about writing Red Harvest Moon, which is it's sort of a classic fantasy setting that we're familiar with. So I've spent a lot of time writing stuff that is out there and experimental and weird and different. And in my experience, it's harder to get that stuff published, and it's harder to find an audience. So I thought, well, let's try something different, and I suppose play it a bit safer. So I wrote Red Harvest Moon, and the plan there was to have something loosely based on a kind of Hiro Kurosawa style Japanese movie where you've got the wandering swordsman and he goes from village to village, and there's some sort of problem, and the swordsman comes in and kicks ass and fixes the situation. But in a more sort of recognizable European style setting. So it's got a kind of a Japanese vibe, but it's a European setting. So, I grew up, I love Japanese cinema, love anime, all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to sort of bring the two things together in my book. And so that's what I tried to do. And I actually started out, weirdly enough, with Red Harvest Moon was going to be like the prequel to another novel. So I'm sure that a lot of writers, to get people interested in their series, will have a little prequel novella or something like that. So Red Harvest Moon started out just as a sort of prequel novella to the main novel.
Yeah.
But when I sort of fleshed out the plot of the main novel, I realised that would actually be the fourth novel in the series. So I had these other two stories that needed to go in between Red Harvest Moon and the first novel. So I thought, well, I've got a lot of work to do here. So I went back to Red Harvest Moon and thought I could probably flesh this out a little bit and make this a novel. And then I went back and wrote a prequel to that. So I've got a prequel novel on my website called Bain, which leads directly into Red Harvest Moon. It's about 40 pages long. So that's the reason why when you look at Red Harvest Moon, it's a little bit on the thinner side, because it started life as a novella and then I have fleshed it out into a novel. But I personally don't mind a short novel. So I think a lot of novels are, a lot of fantasy novels are half a foot thick and take forever to read. So that's where I'm at the moment. And I brought that out in March, and a lot happy with the response. So through your recommendation, Daniel, I got a few good reviews. I've met a few other YouTubers and bloggers and so forth. And it feels like that there's a more of an audience for what I'm doing with this work. Like people are more receptive to it. And I'm really enjoying reading the reviews where people are basically picking up on things that I was trying to accomplish. So, the prose style or the, what I'm doing with the action and so forth, people are sort of, complimenting me on that. And that's great, because it's like, that's what I've invested my energy into.
Oh, yeah.
And so where I'm at now is I'm about halfway through, or more than halfway through the draft of the next novel in the series. I'm really hoping to have out very early next year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's my writing journey thus far.
It's just funny to me, because I feel like you and I have so many similar things, and it's funny too that you say that you had like a heist novel, because that's actually what I had and mine actually was supposed to be a novella, and then I thought, there's just too much here, and then I added a little bit more, and then it's like I had a whole book. And then I thought, oh, if I do these things, now I fleshed out the characters. I'm like, actually be a really fun trilogy. And then I have
Yeah.
two heists going on in the same time in it. And it's just like it's been difficult, but it's been fun. So I just think that it's funny. Me and Mark Timony have a lot of parallels too. So it's
Mm,
just interesting to see. But like how you explain, first of all, I didn't realize that you had the prequel novella. I actually
mm,
had just saw that. I actually think I had it on Goodreads, but I haven't taken a look at it yet. So I'm actually
mm,
really excited before I start Red Harvest Moon to start that novella. It looked, I just really like your covers and your blurbs. I feel like they do a really great job selling that type of novel to me. I'm a big Forgotten Realms fan. I like
mm.
the short, quick, paperbacks. I
Yep.
want to dive into your fantasy world, and I like to know, what's going on and do the adventure. And I too am a huge fan of the Japanese style, those
Mm,
movies and some of those classics like Seven Samurai is one of I think the all time like best movies. So just those types of styles, the Dean Kane, what was his name? From Kung Fu, Legend
oh
Continues,
yeah.
and things like that.
Mhm,
I like when they go from village to village. So that to me, I was already sold on your book when I had read the blurb and saw you talking about it on Twitter and stuff. But I'm
mm,
just glad that you said it that way because I know a lot of the people that watch so far um, have talked to me about those kind of things that they are really interested in. So I
mm.
really feel like you're going to find a really good audience for Red Harvest Moon, and it might take a while to pick up some more traction, but I feel like it's definitely going to stick with an audience because like I was talking to Mark Timony um, in our three interviews, and it's like there's not a lot out there. There's a lot of Joe Abercrombies and
Mm,
people that are trying to be him, but there's not a lot of people to fill that gap that you're talking about.
mm,
And like that's the kind of gap like I also am trying to fill. So I feel
mm.
like that's great right there. I feel like you touched on something too, so I'm actually just really curious now. Um, I'm very interested in your first novel, first of all. And that to me sounds perfect. And I know there's people that listen that will actually be like, oh, I'm going to look at that. Just the title alone,
Mm.
I feel like was perfect. But exactly what would have been your recommendation? Like if you could go back in time, and tell your past author self when you're, publishing that first book, what would be your one do and one don't that you wish you could go back and tell yourself?
Yeah, I think that the one do I can't really think of anything that I wanted to do that I didn't do in terms of the writing. So the book itself, I'm perfectly happy with it, and I've actually got um, I've got a sequel in the works for that as well. And I
Oh,
opened that
cool.
document up a few days ago, and I was having a read over it, and I'd kind of forgotten it. So I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever written something and then years later you look at it.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And I was rereading it and just chuckling. Just I know it's sort of a bit narcissistic to be laughing at your own book, but I was reading it just
You got to
going, this
get
is
joy
actually pretty
from it.
funny. Yeah. So, but what I was happy with the novel. Something that I'll do differently was the cover. Covers are so important, and I heard you talking
Yeah.
with Mark Tinney about this, and it's a fact of life. Um, but I was really happy with the novel, and I basically said to my partner, I'm going to have to go out and pay for a good cover,
Yep.
and it's going to cost at least $1,000.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is, you know, and my partner didn't know anything about, the world of online.
And that's
She just,
cheap
just,
too.
just put up anything; it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. So I know that you can pay as much as you like for a cover, but I found somebody who was a professional. I don't want to run them down because this person has done some really good work, but the work that I think it was probably my fault because I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted on the cover. And what I realize now is that designers really need to be given very clear instructions about what to do. Um, and I was expecting the cover designer to basically come up with a great idea for me and do an amazing cover, but it didn't really work out.
That'd be Felix.
So yeah, well, if you've got a relationship with someone and you know that they
Yeah.
can do something like that, like say to Felix, is
Yeah.
thoughts on that for me,
He's
and
the
you know
only
he's going to
one
do
I
it.
yeah, he's the only
Yeah,
one that I think says, "I don't want you to tell me a lot." Everybody else is like, "I need you to tell me." So it's
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
to hear that. Yeah, because a lot of people aren't like him. A lot of people
yeah,
are like, "I wanna know exactly what you want on this cover."
yeah. And that goes to any graphic design, whether it's a
Yep.
logo or a website or whatever. Graphic designers don't want to be coming up with your creative ideas for
Yeah.
you. They want to, they want to make your vision a
Yeah.
reality. But you need the vision. So, getting back to my book, the cover was a disappointment, and I think that the failure was on my part because I couldn't really come up with an image to convey what I wanted. So that was probably the main thing that I carried through for Red Harvest Moon was I'm going to get an artist to give me a work of art. So that's why I engaged an Australian artist, Olivia Ray, and she created this. I said, I want a guy on the front cover. He's going to have a sword. He's got a black cloak, and it's you're going to look at it straight away and go, awesome. This is a
Yeah.
fantasy novel.
It's
You know what I
awesome.
mean? Like there's no confusion. This is
Yep.
what it's going to be. And so I was really happy with that. And so from now on, it's just, you've got to get that work of art, and you've got to really communicate what you want it to look like, if that's what the artist requires. And then it's kind of on you whether or not the cover works. So that was mistake number one from my first novel that I corrected with the second novel was get a good work of art. And and I got a work of art for the prequel novella as well. So again, it's a bit of a commitment because that's a work of art for a prequel novella that's basically just there to get people on my mailing list. So that prequel novella doesn't make any money other than getting people into that sort of audience building. So yeah, so that's mistake number one. Get a good cover.
It's just so funny that you say that, and I actually am real quick just going to just for the audience here, pull up Bane of Wolves. I just when I when I saw your cover for Red Harvest Moon, it was like off of I just had it. It was somebody that like one of our mutual acquaintances on Twitter, and I was just like, wait a minute, who is this person? Where is this book? Like, when is it out? Immediately those things went right through my mind. And like I said, I feel that, it really fits that niche. And then as soon as I clicked on the blurb, I was just like, yes, please. and and that's what Mark and I were talking about with Blood of the Spear. And I feel like again, like you said, if you're gonna be indie, in my opinion, you have to have a good cover. If not,
Mm,
then you should just hold out or just keep writing till somebody buys your book somewhere. And that's why I've talked to my wife about like I have a friend who I'm really anxious for people to check out, Jeremy Adams, and I share him all the time on Twitter and Instagram. Jeremy is amazing. If you guys in the chat, I'm put a link for this. It's called Cloudbirds, and I forget the author's name. It says was his debut, but man, Jeremy did an amazing cover, and I'm like, it's my favorite cover so far, other than Felix's Blood of the Spear for Mark. And I mean, you could tell, like this person
mm,
really, you know, got your attention by using Jeremy. And, I feel
mm,
like, you look at a couple of Felix's, just recent ones even, and I mean, he's just amazing. And I think if you find the right person and the right
mm.
fit, and I feel like guys, just go get a good cover. And I'm gonna have
Yeah,
Jeremy Adams do mine, and I'm gonna have it be really cool. And I feel like it's gonna be say heist, say
yeah,
fantasy. And I honestly said to Jeremy, I actually sent him your cover, and I said, this is the feel that I want because this is the type of niche in the genre that I want. So I
cool.
definitely think you're right on there.
And I think that's another thing about indie at the moment is the covers. Look at the covers from books 5 years ago,
Oh yeah.
and straight away you look at it and go, that's a self-published book.
Yep.
But now that the covers are just getting better and better. Like if you look at Rob J. Hayes, has got his monthly roundup of
Yep.
releases, and you run your eye down those and just think, my goodness, there's some amazing covers here. So that barrier or that distinction between traditional publishing and indie publishing is gone. But the flip side of that is the indie published author has to stump up the cash. You
Yeah.
sort of you got to roll up to the craps table with a big steak before you can
Yeah.
play the game.
So buy their books, guys. Buy their books. I actually just so you know, like I know you sent me one of the digital copies, but I actually went and bought a physical copy. And what
Oh,
I
thank you.
like is that a lot of the independent bookstores near me in New York have actually started to carry more indie authors that I know, like
Cool.
yourself. So I was so excited. If anybody's in Saratoga Springs, New York, near us, and goes to Northshire, they got a lot of people like Miles's book. It's -1 because I bought the paperback. But yeah, so go there and you're actually sitting right there on the shelf. I was like, wait a minute, there's no way. And I love it
Wow.
because then I don't have, like they already got it from Amazon. And then, I was like, sweet. And I was like, yep, I'm just gonna buy it right now. I was so excited.
Cool.
I felt like a kid in a candy store. My wife was like, wow, that's pretty cool that you know that person on Twitter. I'm like, yep.
Mm.
Was like, yeah, he's coming on the podcast at some point soon. And it was a couple months ago. I was so excited. So yeah, it was really, really neat to actually hold your book in my hand. It was really, really cool
Beautiful.
because it was one that I had wanted the physical copy of for quite a while.
Mm.
And just because we're talking about covers, I just really quick want to just share my screen and show people because I just really loved also this cover for Bane of Wolves. So if you're like me and this is your niche for this, genre in fantasy, I mean, take a look at that cover. I know personally, as soon as we get done here, I'm gonna have to go and get this one and lock it in for my Goodreads. I think that's just a fabulous cover. They both are. I really love the blurb that you're using for both of these two. I guess I'm a little curious at how you write your blurbs,
Mm.
especially for Red Harvest Moon. I'm looking in particular at the Goodreads blurbs. I don't know if you use the same. I know some people use the same from Amazon to Goodreads. Some people change them. I just think personally, yours for Red Harvest Moon was very. It gave you great information, but it still left you enough to be interested in the story. But I felt it was great advertisement. So I'd love to just kind of get in your head a little bit. How did you come up with your blurbs?
Well, I've got a formula actually. So
Oh, okay.
I've looked at a lot of blurbs and did a bit of research and whatever. And there's just a checklist. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
Oh
there's
yeah.
a list of 6 things that you need to put in. I feel like I should make a YouTube clip about this or something
You
like that.
really should. Yeah, no, you really should. I would watch it for sure. I would share it like
But
crazy.
yeah, but I can't remember what it is. But I've got a little list of things that I have to include, and it's
Oh, cool.
basically who's the character,
Yep.
what's his problem, where are we, what genre is this, you know what I mean? So, and it needs to, the first sentence has to be a hook, you know what I mean? So, I'll tell you what, I'll send the information through to you.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Um,
great.
I'll email the list, but I've got a little formula that I've worked out that I stick to, and yeah, so I think that sometimes with different, like being a teacher. So my day job is a
Yeah, yeah.
teacher. So I teach students to use templates or use formulas when they're creating some sort of piece of writing, and from that, you can do whatever you want. But I think it's important to understand that text have a structure, and a blurb is like that. So a blurb, and if you once you sort of understand the underlying structure, you can pick up any book and go, yeah, this is the hook. This is where they're telling you this is the character and this is their problem. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing when you've written a few stories, you watch a movie, and you kind of go, okay, they're about to have an argument, or you
Oh
kind
yeah.
of know what's going to happen, or yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I'll send you the list when I
I
when
just
we
think
when we get off.
Oh, I appreciate it. I think just that advice alone, just that, it's a formula. I don't know why. I've listened to so many writing podcasts. I talk to so many authors. All we do is watch videos. I feel like my friends and I, like Mark and I, were just talking about blurbs the other day. He was thinking about changing his. I was like, please don't. I thought it was really good. And I just don't know why I didn't consider that. I think that that's a very teacher-fied way of simplifying it, but still giving you the main details. And I think that's just really great advice personally. So I hope
Mm.
everybody's watching who is writing because we got some gems so far on this podcast. So that's a really good one. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I'm really interested for this last question here, Miles. I
Mm.
know it's kind of hard because of Spotify only allows you so much time. So I'd love to have you back at some point so we can talk some more about some of these different things. You definitely gave me more to think about, so I know I have some more questions. But I'm really interested to hear at who you would recommend our viewers start reading. Who's somebody that's really stood out to you recently, or maybe just some of your, your favorites over the past, some years.
Yeah, it's a hard question, but
Yeah,
I think that in terms of from being the perspective of being a writer, I think the important thing is to read good books, and it sounds like a total no-brainer. But what I mean by that is don't just read. Obviously, go to Amazon and buy my book. But after you've done that,
obviously.
you want to read some classics. So you want to read some Tolstoy, Charles Dickens, those sort of books that the Tolstoy and Dickens are masters of language, and on top of being great, storytellers. So I think that if you're a writer, what you want to do as much as possible is read really good, really well written books, be it fantasy, science fiction, whatever, and then just you know marinate yourself in that, and then the idea is that when you write, you've had that influence. So a science fiction writer that I think fits that category would be um, William Gibson. I think his writing
Okay.
is superlative. I know Raoul Reeves would disagree with me on that one, but he's an absolutely brilliant writer. Another a fantasy author that I think not a lot of people know about, that is a beautiful writer, is Mervyn Peake, who wrote the Gormenghast trilogy.
Okay.
And I love really well written prose. The
Gotcha.
writing
Okay.
in that is just sublime.
That's good
Obviously,
to know.
Tolkien is essential. Um, a book that's fairly new that I just plucked off the shelf is The Lush and Seething Hell. Do you know this one?
I actually just added that to Goodreads. I think it was
Mm.
literally 3 days ago, actually.
Yeah. So this is horror. So I don't read a lot of horror, but this caught my eye because again the writing is just sublime. So John Horner Jacobs writes beautifully. So if you like well written material, that'd be my pick for something more recent.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah. So there's a lot there. I'm currently reading. This is a little bit older, but it's interesting. So I'm reading The Court of the Air at the
Oh,
moment,
yeah,
which
yeah, yeah.
is steampunk. And again, it's a thick one, but I mentioned this because Stephen Hunt began as a traditionally published writer,
Oh, okay.
quite successful, and then made the switch to indie. So
I did not
he
know that. Yeah.
yeah, so he self-published a novella, and it was successful. And on the back of that, he went, you know what, I'm gonna go indie from now on. So I
Wow.
thought that was really interesting. So and kind of
Yeah.
validating as well that it's like you don't need to, it's not like a sort of have the sort of stories. And this guy has been there and done it. He's had
Oh, yeah.
the successful series in the traditional world, and went, you know what, I'm going to go indie. So I just thought I'd mention that and bring it to your attention. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. I had known that, he was indie. I did not know, yeah, that he was traditional. So that's actually, yeah, that's really cool. We've had a few people actually where in the past few episodes that will come in the future, like yours, because we're a little bit further out now, which is nice. Got to talk to a lot of people and stuff. But yeah, we've had quite a few where I'm like, wow, I didn't know that person, had been traditionally published and then was indie. We always hear about indie
Mm.
where, and things like that, where you're indie then traditionally published. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that it actually goes the other way too. So I
Yeah.
think it is really nice to point out to people, because this is, in my opinion, it's a really good market. And,
Mm.
if you just keep writing and, keep trying new things and, keep listening to people, which is why I tell people to, listen to different podcasts and things, try and talk to different people and find something new. But yeah, that's really good, I think. If anybody again hasn't checked out some of my friends on Twitter with Wizards, Warriors, and Words, please check out their podcast. Uh, the guys say those guys like to say that they don't know anything, but they have such great writing advice, and it's just fun to hear that they have the same problems that we all have. So just make
Mm.
sure you guys check that out. Miles, I really appreciate you coming. I know it's kind of, you're on holiday and everything, so I really appreciate, you giving us your time. And again, I'd love to have you back again. We'll have a couple of, questions already for you, forming in my mind. So I'd love to go through another interview with you. Is there anything other than Red Harvest Moon or anything else that you want to promote or any other news you want to let us know right off the bat?
Not really. I'm sort of, because I'm in the thick of writing book 2 at the moment.
Yeah.
You can go to mileshurt.com and have a look at some blogs that I've been,
Oh,
some
cool.
reviews and blog posts and so forth. But mileshurt.com is where you want to go if you want to get Bain of Wolves, which is free. It's a 40-page novella that leads directly into Red Harvest Moon. So that's probably a good place to start.
Oh, cool. I will be putting that in that link in the description notes. If there's any other links you want people to go to, just let me know and I will put those in there as well. I know I'm going there right after we get done. I was really excited to see that you had a prequel novella there. So, all right. So let me just real quick, we'll go ahead and sign off with you guys. I really want to appreciate you again, Miles, for coming. Thank you so much. To our audience, please make sure you go to Miles' website. It will be in the description. Please, please, please go and buy his book, Red Harvest Moon. Download it. Do whatever you got to do to get it. We would really love to see more people, in this genre. We've talked about it so many times before with Mark Timoney and some of these other fantasy authors. We'd love to see this part of the sector grow again. This part of the genre, just like that Forgotten Realms you guys all love, those Dragonlance, those different styles of fantasy. We'd love to see more of them in the market. I know I would. That's why I write in that type of little spot here in this fantasy market. So please, please, please check out Miles's website. Go grab his book. If you guys have any questions for me or Miles, please just let me know. The email is going to be scholars of Uma. That's UMA@gmail.com. You can find this podcast and future podcasts on our Spotify account. We just got the logo actually earlier today, so it's awesome. So I really can't wait to put that up on Twitter, and we'll finally get that Spotify account ready to go actually tomorrow, and we'll upload our past podcasts. By the time you listen to this, Miles will already be up there on Spotify. And I think that's about it. If anybody has anything else they want to share with me, any fantasy related news, any pictures, videos, things like that, you know where to reach me through the Facebook, our other like pages, Instagram, and Twitter. Miles, thanks again so much. I hope you have a great rest of your holiday, and I look forward to speaking to you on Twitter, my friend.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. And thanks for having him on. It was a lot of fun. Good
Anytime,
luck.
anytime. And you're welcome
Thank
back
you.
anytime, my friend. Have a good
Excellent.
rest of the day, and I will talk to you later, Miles.
Thanks.
Bye.